Everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am Jocelyn Turner, your co host for the show. I am so excited, Dr. Kane, because this is our 40th show. We
We're
like
getting
to
there.
reach those milestones, right? On Tuesday nights when people are doing Taco Tuesday and those other Tuesday festivities, you and I are right here. As a matter of fact, you haven't missed a beat. I have missed because of some other obligations. So, joining me, of course, this week, as usual, as co host, is Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm doing just great. Happy to be here. Happy to have our guests that you will introduce shortly. They were kind enough to join us and take a busy moment out of their day and their family life to present to our audience, to talk to our audience and discuss with them the topic for this evening, which is
Overweight and obesity. And Dr. Kane says my favorite subject, right? So let me tell you the method to how we decide what we're going to talk about. Either it's based on some life experience and or it's based on the fact that it's a national health observance. What is a national health observance? So if you didn't know, for example, May is Women's Health Month. Why is that observed in May? Because what else happens in the month of May? Mother's
Mother's
Day,
Day.
right? So it's Women's Health Month. Next month is Father's Day, so it's going to be Men's Health Month,
Knucklehead month. Yeah.
right? But you said that I didn't. So I can be honest and say I was at a show and I'm texting Dr. Kane. I said, you know what, Dr. Kane, I know, and he knows, and you all know, especially Juana, that I have struggled with my weight for my entire life, right? But as I'm going out and about, I am looking at more and more younger people who are now overweight and or obese. So tonight we have joining us two people who are, I think, experts. Now, I will probably brag on them more than they brag on themselves, but I am going to take the privilege of doing that now. I'm going to start with Dr. Akila Hope. Hopefully, I didn't butcher her name because she know we call her something else, but I'm going to call her by her professional name. Hope. She is the medical director for the Florida Department of Health, but she's also active in her sorority because the last time I saw her, she was at a community event doing her thing with Delta Sigma Theta sorority. How are you doing, Dr. Pope?
I am doing well. Thank you all for having me here today.
Oh, thank you for joining us. And we promise we won't take you take up too much of your Tuesday night. Also joining us tonight is Juana Burgahy. Juana, did I say it right, Juana?
But go
Nope.
on.
I butchered it. Burgoyne. Burgoyne. Did I say
But you, Jocelyn, can call me anything.
Wanna be? That's what I call her. Wanna be because I know I'm gonna butcher her name. So Juana, by the way, is and I disclosed this a few weeks ago that I was diagnosed with diabetes 3 years ago. And after I cried and realized I had to be an adult and do something about it, Juana was one of the first people I called. I actually texted and told her that guess what? Even though we all work together at the health department. As a matter of fact, that's where I met all three of you at the health
Mhm.
department, and I knew because of my background as a health educator, and I knew my family history, that I was destined if I didn't do something about it. Unfortunately, I finally. So I'm a knucklehead, just like some of you who are diagnosed with diseases, or who are told that you are headed toward a disease, but there is an opportunity for you to get it together and reverse that. And I proudly announced to you all a few weeks ago that I never had to take medication. I got my A1C down by following what Juana, as well as some other registered dietitian friends of mine, told me. And so I am happy that Juana, poor thing, I text her so often. She was like, "What does she want now?" But
No.
Juana is a registered dietitian as well as a certified diabetes educator. So, welcome, Juana, to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy I could finally be here.
I know, right? That's because you're so sought after, right? When you're a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator, people want your knowledge all the time. But this is a very serious subject. I know I started out telling some anecdotal stuff, but it's really real. unfortunately, as we look around at our young people, a lot of people, and I love the fact that people, they don't care about, oh, we lost Juana. Hopefully we'll get her back. A lot of people don't care, Dr. Pope. A lot of younger people, they think it's cute to have a little plump baby, or oh, the jaws and the thighs are so fat. And I know that's what my mom used to say. Oh, yeah, just it's okay to have
Mm-hmm.
plump thighs and plump. But let me read a few statistics that I read, by the way, Dr. Pope, before I get into the
Mm-hmm.
question. In question. According to the Centers for Disease Control, about 1 in 5 American children has obesity. Compared to children with healthy weight, children with overweight or obesity are at a higher risk for asthma, sleep apnea, bone and joint problems, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Children with obesity are also more likely to experience bullying, social isolation, depression, and lower self-esteem. So, Dr. Pope, tell me, and obviously we know you can't disclose anything about your particular patients, but what's going on as far as children being overweight and or obese?
And I think Dr. Pope is an expert at this because she's one of my favorite pediatricians. So,
Oh, I forgot to say that part, didn't I? Mm,
Yes, that's my favorite part. My
yeah,
love, my passion is
she just went
pediatrics.
rambling on and forgot.
pediatrics, yes, ma'am.
I love the kids. I call myself a community advocate for kids. So this is right up my alley with overweight and obesity. I see it every single day in the clinic, unfortunately, that I serve. And of course, just in the community, out in the city and in Duval, where we all are participating in various activities. So each and everything, Ms. Turner, you mentioned is exactly true. Unfortunately, we have a crisis here. We have um, overweight and obesity as and considered a disease now. It is not just oh, they're big boned or the chunky thighs or the fat cheeks anymore. This is a chronic illness that we're dealing with in our children population. We have about 35% of the population, I believe the statistic is, that are overweight and obese. And then as far as pediatrics kids, I believe the statistic is anywhere from 24 to 26 percent, with there being predominance in the um, non-Hispanic African Americans, as well as the non-Hispanic Native American and Alaskan American groups. So um, there are predilections for those two ethnicities to be at very high risk for getting asthma, as you said, joint problems. So not only the physical is affected, breathing issues, heart, um, not being able to keep up with their counterparts who are not overweight or obese, just out on the playground, which leads into what what else May is a month for mental health awareness. So it leads into that mental health and getting bullying and or getting bullied, talked about on the playground, and leading into depression, um, sadness, anxiety. So it's not only just that physical illness, it's the mental illness that's affecting our kids these days, which is unfortunate. Again, I do see this each and every day in our clinics. And we are constantly trying to educate and encourage and motivate our children, as well as our parents and our guardians, how to be more effective in the lives of the children. One thing I always say is, we have to first start with what we're putting in our mouths. So starting with our diet, what we're eating, what we're choosing. So making good choices is another thing that we have to think about. Um, a lot of times people say, well, I'm so busy, I'm going here and there and everywhere, and my children have a harder schedule than I do, so I have to stop at McDonald's or Burger King or Subway and pick up fast food. Which, okay, I get that, we are in those times, but what we have to do is make a better choice in what we're choosing when we stop at those places. So instead of getting the hamburger or the fried chicken, we want to say, hey, let's get grilled chicken and maybe a salad on the side versus those great golden French fries that we all like that cause us to have problems. So we just have to make better choices in doing that. And then, of course, secondly, outside of the diet and what we're putting in our mouths, we have to worry about external. So now we have to actually be active. And we say this mantra every single day. Oh, we should have at least 60 minutes of physical activity a day. And everyone 2 years and older should be exercising or having some form of cardiovascular activity for 60 minutes a day so that we can get that heart pumping and us losing or decreasing or not obtaining those fat stores in our body that's causing this obesity and overweight.
Thank you. One of the things that you talked about is eating, and I know it's a struggle for people to try to, especially nowadays when we talk about the cost of foods and things. So, Juana, how do you deal with talking to families about eating healthier? And I know they push back and say, but it's too expensive to buy fresh. It's cheaper to buy canned. How do you help people balance with knowing that they need to choose fresh instead of, canned or what have
Mhm.
you? And especially people who are struggling with diseases and knowing that they are overweight.
Well, fresh is always is the optimal choice is fresh. But then we tell them, hey, frozen is an option. And then canned is not, canned is not. We don't tell people they can't have canned or they don't eat canned, but we tell them if they do need to eat canned food, that it be low sodium or packed without salt if possible. Um, and then using the farmers market, some of the stores like Aldi, I know is they tend to be cheaper as far as pricing. And also encourage them not to buy too much at one time, because if it goes bad, then they get discouraged. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, it just goes bad, so I don't buy anything. So buying smaller amounts, using places like the farmers market or Aldi's or wherever they can find stuff on sale. Variety is important, not just buying the same thing all the time. Choose things that are on sale. I mean, grocery stores have.
Uh-oh,
Just try
Juana.
to encourage them. Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So I was gonna say also that, folks talk about money, and that it's expensive to eat healthy, but then folks spend money on other things, like snack foods are expensive. Burger King and McDonald's is expensive too. The prices are not cheap, but they spend money on what they want to spend money on, So I think our priorities are not in order. We spend what we want to spend on, but we don't think about what we're putting in our body and that we only get one. And once the damage is done, in most cases, it's irreversible.
So let me.
When we talk about, go ahead, Dr. King.
One of the things I wanted to also point out, because these professionals have mentioned quite a few things that are great, but I have to bring into the discussion, which we've talked about in the past, food deserts, areas where it's hard for people to come across the algae. I don't know of one over on Jacksonville's north side, as well as look like you lost Dr. Pope. But there are a lot of places where all they have are these fast foods, and it is great recommendation to try to get the more healthier fast foods. But my point is, we run into these situations, run into these places where we have food deserts, and so people have to grab those unhealthy junk food that you mentioned, Ms. Burgoy, that totally unhealthy, but they are obesity producing. They give you the calories, and that's the problem. They give you the calories, and a lot of it's unhealthy calories. Can you? What about those people that have? You may or may not be able to give us some ideas, but people that live in those food desert areas, how would you? Anything that you can instruct us on how to help for them to?
Well, I'd like to, while she's thinking about it, pondering, I want to give a plug for a new initiative that I am working with is the Black Church Food Security Network. So what we're doing is encouraging Black churches to get involved and grow gardens on their properties. Churches have real estate, pretty much, right? And so to get together with their members, maybe even have farmers market at the church. So there are opportunities, I think, that people can get involved in if they don't know how to get started, even at your own home with growing a garden. Then it's suggested that you contact the extension office. They have master gardeners who can walk you through the process of collecting soil. So you want to get your soil tested if you want to put your fruits and vegetables in the ground, but you don't have to do that. You can get pots and barrels, or all sorts of things. I've seen one of my relatives, okay, it's my brother, I'm gonna call him out. He used a little kiddie pool and started his garden in it, but he grew some collard greens, right? But he was resourceful, and the thing is, he's so proud of his crop. So Juana, I don't want to take over your answer, but that was the one thing that I wanted to encourage people to consider.
Well, I really don't have an answer. I know that when I worked at the health department, I remember we had that big conference, and I know there was a task force at one time trying to work on this issue with the food deserts. And I know one of the ideas that someone had was to have like mobile trucks, trucks that go through the neighborhoods and sell the fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. But I mean, people who are in food deserts, I really can't address the answer to that, because that's a bigger issue than I can even try to tackle. But the churches coming up with gardens, I think, is a great idea, or having them somehow, some way, have those mobile trucks go through neighborhoods and have people be able to buy fresh fruits and vegetables.
And before
could
the
be another idea.
Yeah, and before the pandemic, the Boys and Girls Club actually had a mobile food pantry. One of the things that we did not do at the beginning of the show is, what is obesity? Obese people have an unhealthy and abnormally high percentage of body fat. To measure obesity, researchers use a formula that's based on an individual's weight and height, known as the body mass index. So as far as adults go, or people in general, it doesn't have to be adults or children, what's a healthy BMI? What is there a threshold that you should keep your weight in order to not be considered overweight or obese? And not just that you have good self-esteem and you're okay being an obese person, but what is a healthy threshold? Can either of you speak to that?
So a healthy threshold would be less than 25 for an adult. And once you hit 25, you're considered overweight, so 25 to 30, and then obese starts at 30 for your body mass index. Now, as far as children, it's slightly different. We tend to do more of percentiles instead of the actual number for the BMI or body mass index. So 5th to 85th percentile would be normal, or within normal standards for a child 2 years and older. And then 85th to 95th percentile would be considered overweight. and then 95th and over would be considered your obesity categories.
So a question just popped up. Thank you, Dr. Pope. How do young adults manage obesity and the new society approach of body positive? Anybody want to speak to that? Again, I know that a lot of people feel good about themselves. We've done a great job of telling our young people to feel good about themselves and don't worry what other people say about you. However, unfortunately, we're seeing that folks are beyond the number 30 as far as their body mass index is concerned. And if you don't know how to measure your body mass index, one thing that young people and young adults know how to do is search online for information. So if you want to calculate if you want to know how to calculate your body mass index, then just Google body mass index and it'll tell you based on your height and weight what your BMI is. And you heard Dr. Pope say that if your body mass index is between 25 and 30, you're overweight. And if you're over 30, then you are considered to be obese. But anybody want to speak to that, though? And Dr. Kane, it also includes you, Mr. Resident Family Practice Physician. What are your thoughts about being overweight or obese and body image?
Okay, so, and I'm speaking especially to the adults. I leave the pediatric crowd to the experts, which are the pediatricians, and being it's a fine line to walk, trying to make sure that people don't get depressed and mentally damaged about their weight. Someone mentioned earlier about how people may come along and cause these young kids to be depressed by calling them out of the names and so on and so on. But there's also a hazard, to certain hazards associated with being overweight. Well, let me back up. Not just overweight. I want to really address obesity in this form of fashion. We have to worry about, high blood pressure that isn't necessarily only assigned to obese people, but a lot of times when there's a high association with being obese and high blood pressure, we have to worry about if they're being obese is because of what their diet is, which then includes maybe cholesterol is elevated. We have to worry about diabetes. We have something called metabolic syndrome, which may kind of lead this individual kind of a precursor to diabetes. And those particular components of the metabolic syndrome, which I won't get into at this moment, but those particular components of metabolic syndrome do would serve some in the totality, may increase the risk for that person to have be at risk for cardiovascular disease, which we all know is the number one killer in adults. So while being body positive, that body positive image, I don't want anybody to beat themselves up about their weight. I want them to steady work on it. I'm also want to make sure people understand that there are certain hazards to being overweight, especially not overweight, obese. Overweight just kind of taking you down that road that if you're not careful, you may become obese. But like yours truly, the overweight crowd. But you try to work to where you want to make sure that your weight is not becoming a life-threatening condition.
So, Dr. Kane, it sounds like you're saying that obesity can actually affect your life, shorten your life expectancy.
Absolutely. It can give you other things like a lot of people when they're obese, you start having joint pains, especially the knees, because your body frame, your skeletal system was not made to carry that much weight on you say big bone, but you have a lot of people who regular bone who have that are carrying a whole lot of fat with them, and it can really cause some damage to your knees over time, knees and ankles.
Thank you. So, Juana, let's talk about a diet. You know, when people think about, if somebody right now is watching, and by the way, we do have a dial-in number for if anyone has any questions of our guests. That's a new feature that we launched last week. Bear with us, because with growing comes some pains, right? But you can dial in and ask our guests a question. The number is 904-469-8488. Again, that's 904-469-8488. But Juana, so let's talk about overweight or obesity. Obesity. If someone wants to make a change tomorrow, what would you suggest to them as they walk in their kitchen? I'm gonna back up a step further, as they go to the grocery store, because I think it starts with having a different relationship with a grocery store. I told somebody once that intellectually I know a lot. However, sometimes my ancestry trumps intellect, and I tend to gravitate towards the foods that I'm accustomed to. What would you say to people if they want to start adopting good eating habits tomorrow to get their weight under control?
So, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think the easiest way is for them to use the plate method. Okay. I think that's one of the easiest ways for people to start. And, the plate method simply says you divide half of your plate, and there we go with the vegetables again. But, you're going to put half vegetables, and that could be raw, cooked, both. Okay, as long as they're not overcooked, right? We don't want to overcook the vegetables, because then we lose a lot of the nutrients. And then the other two portions of our plate are going to be the protein and carbohydrate. Okay, preferably carbohydrate that's high in fiber, that's whole grain, or it could be a starchy vegetable. It could be, in that part of the plate as well. But to me, if you think about your plate and what you're going to put on your plate, and making a grocery list before you go to the grocery store, that helps. Don't go to the grocery store hungry, because even I go hungry and it's terrible, but being prepared is also important too. And I guess we might get into that later on, but being prepared is super important. If you're going to be away from home, most of the day, you're out running errands, or even you're going to be at work, have healthy snacks available. Don't wait until you're hungry and then go to the convenience store, go to the vending machine and get something that's unhealthy. But be prepared and have things on hand in your car. Have water. A lot of times we think we're hungry and we're actually really thirsty. So making sure we have those things on hand. Food prepping is important. A lot of people say, I don't have time during the week to cook. And I hear more and more people saying on the weekends, they get in the kitchen and they food prep. They get, a couple meals done over the weekend. They freeze stuff if they need be. But being prepared is really important as far as trying to change your diet, and then just taking little baby steps, not trying to do too much at one time. Pick something this week. Maybe this week I'm just going to try to eat more vegetables, or this week I'm going to try to drink more water, or this week I'm going to, eat healthier snacks. So I don't want to ramble. So go ahead.
Those are all good tips. I like how you said to, first of all, planning ahead, preparation. I know some folks who actually, they'll go to the grocery store on Saturday, and then on Sunday they're prepping. They even post their foods online with all their bowls, their dishes sitting out, and putting things in. And again, the plate. If you go on myplate.gov, you'll see more information on what that plate looks like. And when Juana and my colleagues at the health department start telling me about that, and let's keep it real now, we know we go to a steakhouse or something, and in some instances, the steak is taking up the whole plate, right? Definitely taking up half the plate. But that's not what Juana just said. She said a quarter of that plate. And I think the way that I was taught, Juana, is the palm of your hand, your protein.
Right.
Just imagine, your meat should not be any larger than the palm of your hand. Now, we're not talking about the sizes of the big 7-foot person's hand. We're talking about your hand. Another thing that I wanted to bring up, by the way, and I can't remember which one of you all talked about it, because, I had all the tricks to the trade when I worked at the health department. We talked about knowing whether or not you are big boned. That's what we say in our culture, in our community. And I used to tell people, if you measure the circumference of your wrist, and by the way, my wrist is not very big. If you measure the circumference of your wrist, you will then know that you're not big, you do not have big limbs as you say you have, and that's not your excuse. But on a serious tip, Dr. Pope, I just have to draw it back to you, because as you are seeing children on a regular basis, and you notice obviously when a child comes in that's overweight, but you're looking at the parent, right? Side-eyed, mom. So, let me ask you a little bit about your health. So do you or anybody in your family have high blood pressure or diabetes? Little Johnny or little Susie is headed that direction. Do you ever keep it real and have those conversations with people?
Absolutely. That is the only way that people really feel that you're telling them the truth and telling you, hey, I care about you. And sometimes I have to break it down like that. I care about you. I care about my patient, which then lends into you. So we need the whole house to take this whole attitude on. So just kind of stepping back a little bit about the plate. We're not talking about those large plates either.
Platters.
That we typically have. Platters, yes. We're talking about the usual, what's the actual size, Juana? Is it supposed to be
9 inch?
9 inches, okay.
9 inches, not the 12-inch plate, but the 9-inch plate. So that's first and foremost. But yes, that's the first thing I do is say, how motivated are you? And because I'm dealing with pediatrics, I have to talk to the parent or the guardian. So how motivated are you? Because we have 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds who are obese. So they're not in charge of their exercising and their diet and buying the food that goes into the house or goes into their mouth. Their parent or their guardian is. So we have to really have a heart-to-heart conversation with that parent to say, well, let me see how motivated you are. And then, of course, when you get into the adolescents and the teenagers, it's a little bit easier because we can turn to them and say, well, how motivated are you? And how fast do you want to go? So as Ms. Juana stated, taking small steps at a time. So I asked them, do you want to go as fast as a change a week? Or do you want to go slower, one change a month? And then I let them make a decision because we are a team. So we want the parent, the child, and the physician, and all of the support system, meaning the grandparents' house that they go to, the daycare that they go to. We are all a team and we're working towards one goal, and that's a healthy child who will end up making a healthy adult. So we take one step at a time. And to your previous question, I always start with liquids because we always drink, and it's always sodas, and it's always a color. So red, green, those mountains. What did you say?
I say it was red Kool-Aid back in the day.
Red Kool-Aid, exactly. Purple Kool-Aid, red Kool-Aid. And now we have the energy drinks and the boosters and stopping by Starbucks with all the sugary caramel, lattes and frappes and frappuccinos and all that are full of sugar. So just starting small, say, hey, let's cut half the Mountain Dews and replace that with water. Let's just start there. Now, how fast do you want to go? Do you want to go weekly or monthly? And then good follow-up is always the key, because that motivation, that pushing always helps. When you're talking to the parent or the guardian, you also have to say, because we get, well, I don't want to punish the other kids. So maybe the other kids who are or have normal body mass index. So then you have to turn around and say, well, it's not punishing you or the other kids. This is normal for everybody. This is the recommendation for everyone to eat this way, to portion size your meals, to make sure you're drinking your 8 cups of water a day. Make sure you're having your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. This is the norm. So we're not getting punished. We're just getting the whole household together. And then if you are really serious, making sure that one child or 2 children or the whole family, you want to do it all together, so it doesn't put that one child in a silo and pull them out or call them out, because then that's also causing problems with their psyche and their mental health as well.
Let me throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into the discussion, because I'm coming from the adult version, obviously.
Yes.
You know, the gaining weight means that you're taking in more calories than you're burning. So when we start looking at weight loss, obviously you need to take in less calories than what you burn. That's the only way you're going to actually lose weight. And that taking in less calories, or increase the burning of calories. So that's where the proper diet and exercise comes from. Calories in, calories out. If the calories in equal the calories out, you're not going to lose any weight. If the calories in outweighs or outnumbers the calories out, you're not going to lose any weight. You know, and so what I tend to see is, particularly in these days and time, you know, not to even mention the fact what COVID did, the whole COVID situation did with my population, and even somewhat in our house, that we had to stay vigilant in terms of you didn't burn as many calories because you weren't out there, like, you know, enjoying the world as we were prior to COVID, you know, exercising and so on and so on. So obviously, you know, the thing that most people were doing was just trying to take in less, or geared toward was taking in less calories. What I am concerned about is the fact that in these days and time, our kids are not getting any exercise. When we were growing up, you know, the one thing that our parents would say, boy, go outside and play. But it's hot out there. I don't care. Find something to do. Don't stay in here. They would run us outside to do the exercise. And so now the kids these days, I'm beginning to see, and Dr. Pope can attest to this, as well as Ms. Begoy, we're beginning to see kids develop this diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that was reserved for older folks back when I started practicing. Mm-hmm. It was reserved to people that was 30 and above. And now we see these kids 10, 12 years old. And I think the whole access to this guy and its equivalents are really weighing a toll on our kids and adults becoming obese, because I think they're spending more time looking at other people do things than doing things themselves. I just wanted to make sure I got that part out, and people knowing that you have to, it ain't just watching what you eat, but you also have to burn, and that the more muscle you have, the more efficient you are at burning calories.
That's
and
right.
Kane, when you know, and one of the things when I mentioned that when I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I started calling the folks that I know, I did start increasing my physical activity in addition to my calorie consumption. So one question, Juan, I want to ask you: how do people decide? I'm going to hold my thought and just ask a question that's been posted. What happens when you find or provide services for families that are obviously hungry from lack of food or funds? Parent has been out of work. They would be glad to get any kind of food or service. Anybody want to speak to that?
Yes. What I would say, hello, Miss Jamila. Of course, I love your name, my old coworker. Um, what I would say to that is we can also be mindful of how we're cooking the food. So it's not just about what foods we get, because sometimes you may want to have that pork chop or that piece of chicken or a potato, but how do you cook it and how much the portion size is can also help. So instead of frying, you might decide, hey, I have an air fryer, so let me air fry it, or broil, bake, grill, blacken. And that will change the trajectory of how the food is processed in the body.
The amount of calories it provides. Because if you
And
fry it, obviously the oil is incorporated into that fried chicken, just opposed to when you air fry it. There's no additional oil added to it. So there's no additional calories added to it. Also, whether or not they're stuffed. Also, whether or not you're eating the skin on that chicken. If it has some level of fat to it, as Ms. McGoy can attest to. And that provides some additional calories. So for those people, Ms. McGoy, that really you just can't drink water. I don't like the taste. What can we know what's best, because I'd rather eat my calories than drink it. So we know it's not juice. People quick to say, "Oh, I just drink fruit. I just drink real juice," as if it's calorie-less. What kind of drinks would you encourage people? How would you encourage people to drink more water other than just purely turning up the water and drinking it? And is there some additive, another that you have that you may want to flavor it? Just whatever ideas you may have on that.
A lot of people are using the carbonated water nowadays that doesn't have any added calories. A lot of people are liking that. There's one I have in my refrigerator right now called Bubbly, and then LaCroix makes one. But then if you don't want to spend that money on carbonated water, lemon is always a choice. Some people I tell people, even if you put just a little bit of juice, maybe just a splash of cranberry juice or a splash of grape juice, just to give it a little bit of color and just a little bit of flavor to get you to drink the majority of the water in the cup, is going to be better than not drinking any water at all. People who have diabetes, when they want something different to drink other than water, unsweet tea is an option. Crystal Light, we don't want them overdoing it on Crystal Light, but it's always an option if they want something different. And if they have to have a soda, I don't promote soda because soda is not good for us. But I've had people with diabetes tell me, oh, diet soda is bad for me, so I drink regular soda. And I'm like, no, listen, if you're going to drink a soda, you need to drink a diet soda. I would rather you drink water, but if you have to have a soda, it needs to be a diet soda. So
tell us more about that Crystal Light issue. That's a question.
So the thing is with the research has shown that when we take in excessive artificial sweeteners, that the body starts to process those artificial sweeteners just like they would sugar. So that's why, people have to be careful and not just drink Crystal Light all day, but it can be a treat, or they can use it maybe with one meal, one glass, if that's necessary. But it's always going to be better for them to use the artificial sweetener versus, regular sweet tea, because that's going to really shoot their sugar up.
Is there a rule of thumb, Juana, when someone wants to start losing weight, that they should eliminate so many calories a day?
So, I'm glad you asked this question, because I wanted to share that, this is like, I don't know if you guys can see this very well. You can't, it's not really impactful, I think, on, not in real life. This is 5 pounds of fat. This is just 5 pounds. So imagine if we're carrying 20 pounds of fat, that that we're carrying around every day. What our poor heart has to go through, as far as carrying all that extra weight. So, one small bag of chips, for example, is 150 calories. Okay. If we just eliminated those bag of chips or anything that we were snacking on, and maybe multiple times a day. So it could be a 12-ounce soda. It's going to be about 150 calories. It could be a candy bar, a half a Snickers, the regular size Snickers is like 150 calories. The kids are eating these Takis now. I looked those up. Like 13 of those Takis are 150 calories. So the point I'm trying to make, those Takis that the kids are eating, they're like these little spicy sticks.
Super hot
kids
chips.
are eating them.
Oh.
Yeah, they're really hot. The kids are into those. So what the point I'm trying to make is, if we cut out 150 calories, right, and multiply that by 7, that's 1,050 calories that we've reduced from our diet in a week. Okay, this is 3,500 calories of fat. Right. So imagine if you did that on a weekly basis, that's 4,200 calories, which is equivalent to more than 1 pound of fat.
Right.
So basically, my point is, even just a little change of cutting out one of those snacks that are not giving us, nutrient dense, a nutrient dense snack, or giving us more calories than what we need, is going to help us, to lose weight.
I mentioned earlier, I talked about calories in, calories out. And Ms. McGoy, you kind of alluded to one of the things I would just like to make sure I mention. And you can correct me if I'm not exactly on mark here, but it takes approximately 3,500 extra calories to gain a pound.
For 1 pound, 1 pound, and this is 5.
Above, right. And but to lose a pound, it takes exactly 3,500 less calories.
Exactly.
Again. So, as you were saying, if you're stair stepping and adding to the calorie loss over a period of time, when you hit that deficit of where you taking in 3,500 less calories, if that's 3,500 less calories in a week, you lost a pound that week.
Yes.
If it's 7,000 calories that week, you lost 2 pounds that week. And that, and so in a month, that would be 8 pounds. In 10 months, that's 80 pounds.
Yes.
And when you start doing the math, that's what you look at along that line. That if, and one last thing, I got to say it from the adult standpoint, since you showed that huge thing of fat right there, I know some people that are 40 pounds overweight, and a lot of times, or more, but a lot of times that 40 pound, guess where it sits? In their stomach, right?
Yes.
It's like a 40-pound kid. When you lay down to sleep, it's like a 40-pound kid sitting in your stomach. Try to breathe with a 40-pound kid sitting in your stomach. Now you start getting something called, a propensity to develop something called sleep apnea. It increases that disease statement. If you don't know what sleep apnea is, that's where you don't you stop breathing multiple times throughout the night, which increases your risk for having heart disease, especially AFib and some other things, that it may cause. And one last thing, when you look at that fat you just talked about, and I mentioned about fat in the stomach, you think that fat just stopped at the diaphragm and doesn't go on up to the heart and start surrounding the heart with that kind of fat? It does not. So that is a very, very, show that one more time for people to take a look at what 5 pounds of fat look like. And I've actually seen that in real life. That's a plastic model. In real life, it is really scary. When we
reminds me of when Oprah, when she lost weight that time, and she pulled it out, the number of pounds that she lost out on a wheelbarrow, and people don't think about that though. And also people will go to WANA or to their doctor and say, I want to lose 10 pounds before my birthday. And then when you start talking to them about, well, reduce the number of calories a day, well, most people don't even have a clue how many calories that they eat a day. So Juana, can you speak real briefly about how people can read food labels and the importance of reading food labels?
So obviously they can look at the food label and look to see, what nutrients, how many calories, so they can see how much sodium. We want to keep our sodium level down to, I think they changed it now for people with diabetes, it's like 1,500 milligrams a day, right? 1,500.
Yeah.
And then as far as calories, it all depends. So men, and it depends, and everybody's different. That's why, healthy eating patterns need to be set. Somebody needs to sit down with a person and talk about their likes, their dislikes, how different foods affect. Yeah, because everybody is not the same.
One size does not fit all.
One size does not fit all. So as far as how many calories a person should be eating, it depends on their, their sex, their age, and a lot of times too, how much they're eating now. If I have a person that's eating 3,000 calories, there's no way I'm going to tell them, now tomorrow you got to start eating 2,000 calories a year, or 1,000, 1,500, something unrealistic. So you have to meet them where they are. But the food label is important if folks understand it and know what to do with it. So that's where a dietitian comes in, or maybe they can sit down with their doctor. Their doctor can give them an idea of how many calories they need for the day. And then from there, they start looking at calories on, even when they're at restaurants. Nowadays, they put the calories on, on the board, which is good. There are apps that people can look up calories, and look up fat and sodium and fiber. I mean, they can look up all these things, and they can pre-plan. If they know they like to go to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever fast food restaurant, they can look at the menu ahead of time and try to make choices before they get there, smarter choices. But the food label is helpful because it basically guides you as far as, how much you're getting, but to know what you need for the day. That's where a dietitian can come in, or your physician, and can help you with guidelines. There's also the American Diabetes Association is a great website. They have a lot of nutrition information. The Academy of Nutrition and Food has a lot of, good information and guidance. MyPlate.gov is an excellent resource. These are all resources that you can, go online and learn from, and help you to make small changes. That's what I always say. Just make small changes, because sometimes we get overwhelmed when we're trying to do too much at one time.
And get disappointed, and people may decide they throw their hands up when they get frustrated. So, like you say, take baby steps. That sooner or later, at some point, will become strides toward a healthier lifestyle and healthier weight.
Another website I'd like to go to is also eatright.org. I know that's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Right.
That's some good information. And so, Dr. Pope, now tomorrow you're going to go to work, and you're going to do your usual seeing your patients, and you're going to remember this discussion tonight. So what do you tell one of your patients who said, Dr. Pope, I heard you, I saw that podcast, right? What do I need to do for my family to get started? Because I'm overweight or obese. I don't want my child to be that way. What advice would you give them?
Well, first, I would start off by just saying, you've come to me, you made the first step. So this is the first positive thing. Let's go ahead and congratulate you, and thank you for coming in and just recognizing what's going on as a family as a whole. And then secondly, we're going to sit down and talk about what their lifestyle is like. What type of things do they do? What is a day in the life of the Turners or the Canes? what are you doing throughout that day, so we can kind of see where we can make those small changes. And then, as I said before, motivate them and encourage them, and then see how motivated they are in order to gauge how slow or how fast they want to go, and say, what is your goal? Once we figure out their goals, then we can take that one step and move forward with what they are most concerned with, whether it's the exercise or if it's the diet. And then each time we'll come up with a plan of action and a follow-up plan to come back for accountability for everything that we have set in place.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I used to always share with people is, especially adults, don't try to do it alone. All of us have our favorite foodies. That's what I call them, foodies. Our friend, when we want to go out and pig out. I don't eat crabs, but I know I have friends who love crabs, and they like going to those places, have those big gigantic things with the crabs and the corn and all of that. I don't eat crabs, so that doesn't do anything for me. But I think those same friends that you go out, your foodie friends, should now also become your let's get ourselves together. Let's get healthier friends. Having a buddy is helps you so much. As I shared with my journey, I would wear Dr. Kane's ears off, or Juana or some other folks, and say, what do I do? But I think the thing that Juana said a few minutes ago that we all have to remember, know your insurance plan and what it covers. It doesn't just cover your coming to the doctor. It also covers your going to see a registered dietitian. It may also cover a fitness plan. It may, pay for you to be, not necessarily paid, but give you discounts to a gym or whatever. So go to work tomorrow, talk to your HR department, and ask, are there any wellness benefits associated with my insurance plan? Because you might be pleasantly surprised. And going to see a registered dietitian might be on the list of providers or specialists, like an OBGYN or optometrist. Those specialists are there to help you, and realize that the weight did not come on overnight. And also, you might be big boned. So ask your doctor the next time you go to the doctor. Now, Dr. Kane, I'm going to direct this question to you as we talk about Men's Health Month, especially. So it doesn't mean this question I'm about to ask you, hold on to your socks, does not just affect men, but does obesity affect a person's sex life? Because I know when you're talking with your male patients, their ability to perform is important to them. So do you have to go there with guys who are overweight or obese?
Oh yeah, I mean, your level of comfort and who you're talking to allows you to what you can say and how you say it, and many times they do come to me looking for that enhancer, or sometimes it's necessity. The Viagra type medications. A lot of times that is when you're out of shape, or obesity can increase the deposition. It can Obesity can be associated with elevated cholesterol and high blood pressure and diabetes. All three of those can affect the lining of your blood vessels. When they affect the lining of your blood vessels, it affect blood flow throughout your blood vessels. So if it winds up being that you have your cholesterol your blood vessel is blocked in your heart, then you know about that increased risk for heart attack. Mm-hmm. This happens in the head or in the neck, that's increased stroke. If it happens in the penile artery, which is that artery that takes blood to the penis, then I guess that's a penile stroke, because it's not getting the blood, so there will be no erection, or there will be no prolonged erection. One other thing I like to throw at some of the guys, like I say, it depends on who you're talking to. It's like, okay, keep it up. One day you won't be able to see it. You just don't have to feel for it and see it. Hope it's still there. So,
you're talking about because of belly fat?
Because of belly fat, you got to look over and try to find it. And then the last thing would be, if you're that far out of shape, You better get your 2-minute egg timer, because that's that's not how long some of them are going to last before they get out of gas, because they're just that far out of shape. So yeah, it definitely affects men. All jokes aside, it affects men in more than just one way, but especially the big thing that they come to me about is erectile dysfunction, because that seems to be the head that addresses that the most, for lack of better description. And we have to, I have to go where it works for me. I will bring that out and quickly, that if you are in better shape, i.e., do your proper diet, proper exercise, the better shape you are, the more than likely the better performance you have in bed, to be quite frank with you.
I'm glad you said that, Dr. Kane, because again, having worked in public health for 36 years, I know some of the tricks to the trade that I used to tell our patients is, as a family, because it's not something that people do a lot, but after you have dinner, instead of sitting in front of the television, take a walk in your neighborhood. And then that way, that'll be some family time together. It gives you a chance to catch up with your children, your spouse, or whatever, your mate, on things that happened that day. And the other thing that we have not talked about as we near the end of the show is screen time. We talk about limiting how much television, how much time in the computer, how much time in front of the video games, all of those things, with especially Dr. Pope, and I know you can speak to that better than I can, in terms of what you tell children. I think it's no more than 2 hours a day of screen time. Is that about right?
So no more than 2 hours of screen time is what's recommended. But
Right.
because especially with school these days, everything is on the computer. So our children are in front of the computer almost 8 hours a day. So we can't logically say no more than 2 hours of screen time a day. So what they've decided from American Academy of Pediatrics is, if you do that 1 hour of physical activity, that's going to be an hour away from a screen. 1 hour of dinner, which should be family time, around the table, discussing, talking, having conversation, that will take up 2. And then the third hour is supposed to be your downtime prior to you sleeping. So what we call powering down electronics, so that you can calm down, relax your brain, relax your mind, and get into your sleeping pattern. So they're hopeful that you're going to get at least 3 hours without screen time. But screen time has becoming a huge problem. It is definitely an addiction as well, which is causing more increased risk for our obese and overweight children and adults.
Well, it's been a great conversation as we talked about the health effects of overweight and obesity. We learned a lot tonight. Obviously, as we have these conversations weekly, we never intend on answering everything in 1 hour of show, but it gave you a good idea of what you need to do as far as your own health, of the health or the health of your children, your family. We like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts as we end tonight's discussion. Dr. Pope, I'd like to start with you. What are your final thoughts on the topic of overweight and obesity?
My final thoughts are that overweight and obesity can be tackled. It is a disease, it is an illness, but if you just take one step at a time and have just a little bit of motivation, it can be tackled, and we can decrease the chronic illnesses that are occurring in our children and our adults.
Thank you. Juana, what are your final thoughts on our topic of the health effects of overweight and obesity?
I would say that we don't gain weight overnight. We gain weight over a period of time, and it to have healthy weight loss. We want to have it come off slowly, just like it came on slowly in most cases. So healthy weight loss does take some planning, It does take some, some patience, and definitely some effort. But like Dr. Pope said, it's not that it can't be tackled. It's something that can be done. Use your support systems, your physician, if you can access a dietitian, a fitness, a fitness instructor, websites that are going to be reputable, that are going to give you information that's evidence based and science based. Use those resources, but it can be done. I've seen people get off the strongest insulin on the market because they changed their diet. I've seen people reduce the amount of insulin or not take insulin anymore, because they changed their diet. So, it can be done, but it doesn't get done overnight. It does take some time, but it can be done.
Thank you. Dr. Kane, last but not least, what are your final thoughts on tonight's discussion?
Well, one of the things about tonight's discussion is that I recognize that many people really don't want to address themselves being overweight. Sometimes they feel like it may be a failure on their part. So to address it means that they may feel they're admitting to failure to being able to do something about it. So they try to ignore it and don't want to bring it up. As a physician, I tend to try to bring it up in the office when I start looking at issues, particularly with that, as I mentioned before, the diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and those different disease states that are affected or associated with obesity. But what people need to remember is that physicians like myself, I'm talking adults, and Dr. Pope can probably concur with the same thing. We only have so much time in the office to address the issue of obesity. We can bring it up and we can give some hints or some advice on certain things, but feel free, and I encourage everyone to ask your physician for a referral to a dietitian to us whom will take more time than I have, and to a great degree is more knowledgeable about what to eat, how to eat, particularly when it's someone that understands your culture. And so ask physicians for a referral to do just that. And as Ms. Burgoy said, give it time, and with their assistance and you're following their directions, you can pretty much be assured you will lose weight and get healthy.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. And again, tonight's discussion was very informative. I hope that you jot down the sites that we mentioned. We mentioned the American Diabetes Association, the Academy of Dietetics and Nutrition, the American Heart Association. There are some apps that you can download on your phone. I know a lot of people like MyFitnessPal and some other apps, but the bottom line is do your homework. One of the things that none of us want, although we may have a family history, none of us want to be told that we have high blood pressure or diabetes or high cholesterol. But if you have one, more than likely at some point you may have one of the others. And although you have a family history of it, changing your lifestyle, adding simple things as they talked about, and know that the mountain might be big, but if you just tackle one grain each day, then you know that you can do it. We talked about myplate.gov, going on that plate and not that platter, as Dr. Pope said, but really a standard size 9-inch plate. Now you have an assignment to go and measure the size of your plate, or make it easy and go out and buy some 9-inch paper plates and put it against your plates. And it'll give you a sense of knowing that you need to divide that plate into quarters. Do your homework, folks. We try to share information with you to hopefully change the trajectory of your life and increase your life expectancy. Tune in next week as we talk about another topic that we alluded to tonight that's very important in so many of our lives, and that is high blood pressure. It affects so many people, young and old. However, it can be controlled. a lot of it is based on what we eat, how well we manage our stress. We didn't talk about that tonight, as well as how much physical activity. Join us next week for Pause for the Truth. And remember, take one step at a time towards your good health. Good evening.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.